Hey guys, it's Cece, and welcome to a series of unfortunate discussions. So a series of unfortunate discussions is, of course, a series all about a series of unfortunate events, the book series as well as the Netflix show. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing The Reptile Room, the book by Lemony Snicket, as well as episodes 3 and 4 of the Netflix series, A Series of Unfortunate Events, The Reptile Room, parts 1 and 2. I've already done a discussion on The Bad Beginning, both book and episodes, if you would like to go and watch that. Before we jump in, I just want to mention one thing. Tomorrow, January 22nd, I'm going to be doing a live show as part of the BOOKTUBE YA Awards. It's going to be held on the Owry's channel. That's Elizabeth at the Owry Books. I will leave the link down in the description below. In that live show, myself, as well as a few other judges, will be discussing 3 graphic novels or trade paperbacks to decide which was the best release of 2016. We will be talking about Paper Girls Volume 1, Giant Days Volume 2, and Lumberjanes Volume 4. So make sure to put that on your calendar. Come tomorrow, watch, participate in the chat. We're all going to be talking about it, so make sure to go and tune into that. Anyway, with that out of the way, like I said, information will be in the description below. Let's talk about The Reptile Room. So I have a lot of feelings about this book. This book I like a lot more than the first one. Not a lot, but I do like it more than the first one for a couple of very specific reasons. First of all, I think that the first book has to spend a ton of time on introductions, and that means that some of the rest of it can fall behind. But also, in my opinion, this is the book where things start to get more serious, and also the book where we start to see more development from Klaus and Violet, and we start to understand each of them more as characters. Sunny as well, but to a lesser extent. She's an infant, so I just focus less on Sunny's character development until we get way later on in the series. Of the 4 that I reread for this little Netflix thing, this is my favorite, and I think it is because it's the saddest, but also has the happiest moments. Obviously, this is due to the extreme sadness of the fact that I adore Monty, and things do not end well for him. But speaking of development, one of the reasons that I love this is, as I said, the development of the kids, especially Violet. I think that this is a book where we start to see a lot more of her anger, a lot more of her frustration at the fact that she is supposed to be the one protecting her siblings, and she doesn't really feel she's doing a great job. Sometimes she blames herself for this, but sometimes she does recognize that it is because of others and things outside of her control, and that really frustrates her. And I like that we're seeing this now because I definitely think that that is a feeling that she has that goes forward for a lot more books. Another thing I love about this story and this book in particular is the fact that it is Olaf's ego that gets him trapped. Olaf has a lot of ego as a character. He always feels the need to perform and be the best at what he does, and I really, really like that this is the book in which he trips up over himself on that, and it is because of himself that he gets caught. It is so ridiculously easy to trick Mr. Poe, and I just appreciate, from like a character creation standpoint, the fact that the reason Olaf can't get out of the situation is because he dooms himself. Not that he doesn't get out of the situation in the end, he does escape, so. Obviously, I love Monty. I think that he's a wonderful character, and it's great to see how the children can flourish when they are treated with respect and when they are given basic living arrangements. It's fun to see their passion come back and their response to Uncle Monty. My only problem with Uncle Monty has always been the fact that he's never seemed like the type to just not believe the children when they tell him something, which I think is the thing that they fixed in the show, though I will discuss that later. It's just always frustrated me that Monty seems as easily duped as the other adults in the series when we are told basically from the beginning that he is supposed to be different from the other adults in the series. So that's a frustration I have with the books, but overall I still love Monty as a character. And this is just upon me rereading it as an adult and watching the show, I still agree with the standpoint. Monty still seems gay to me, and you know, I'm just gonna keep that in there. I think I've decided that Monty's gay. I think that that's what I'm gonna go with. And the last comment that I want to make about the book is that this book has one of my favorite lines of all time, not just of this series in general, and it is a line that I believe Klaus and Mr. Poe have back and forth with one another. Violet says that she has picked the lock of Stefano's suitcase, and Mr. Poe says something along the lines of, "Picking locks is not something a nice girl should know how to do." And Klaus responds, "My sister is a very nice girl and she knows how to do a lot of things, or a lot of useful things." I don't know. Just Again, from a standpoint of Violet being incredibly formative in my early years, I still love that scene, and I love the insistence that some of the adults try to put these certain boxes and constraints on the kids, and the kids are like, no, no, no. None of your gendered nonsense. She can pick a lock and be a nice girl and be a genius, and that's just cool. So I love that line. It's one of my favorites, just in general, favorite quotes. So those are all of my thoughts about the Reptile Room, the book, and now let's get into the show. So let's just jump right in by getting something out of the way. I'm still really not a fan of Neil Patrick Harris's Olaf, but I think that I'm going to stop mentioning that quite so much at this point because I just don't think he's ever going to be the Olaf I want him to be, and I think that that is both the fault of the show and Neil Patrick Harris's portrayal of the character. I just don't think that they want him to be very menacing. I don't think that they want him to come across as frightening in any way, and so I'm gonna continue to probably not be super pleased with that, but it's stupid at this point to keep bringing it up in every discussion. But I will say one of the things I disliked about this is there's a scene in which Olaf is threatening the children, and he is actually doing a really good job of being sinister. It was one of the most sinister times I've seen Neil Patrick Harris play it, but over the top, they played like silly carnival music for some reason, and that just frustrated me because I felt like in those scenes, Neil Patrick Harris was finally really taking advantage of the fact that this is a full-grown man constantly threatening to murder children, and he was living that, and the show was like, no, no, too scary, have to play carnival music so we don't take this seriously. I did, however, like the scene where he first shows up at the house, and he threatens them with a knife, chases them up the stairs. I thought that that was pretty scary, and he did a pretty good job with that, but those are still my feelings on Neil Patrick Harris as Olaf. I liked the kids a lot more in these two episodes. Like I said in my first discussion, I liked them, but I thought that they had a chance to grow on me more, and they definitely did in this episode. I was saying I was having a problem with Violet, but I think that she was doing a much better job in this episode. She was hitting a lot more of the notes. She was making everything feel a lot more natural than it was in episodes 1 and 2. I appreciated that, like the book, she has a lot more anger and that she shows a lot more emotion. That scene where they find Monty and Olaf is still threatening them and she is just silent and you can tell she's sort of shaking and she has the one tear slide down her cheek, I thought that was pitch perfect. I completely loved it, and I thought that it really showed that Melina Weissman is catching up in terms of how to portray the Baudelaires. Louis Hines, on the other hand, is still impressing me. I think that he is the perfect Klaus. He is just living this character, and even though I still think that some of the stuff with Sunny looks a bit ridiculous on screen, I have to say that the baby is adorable, and I spend at least a few minutes every episode going, oh, God, she's so adorable. I wanted to mention, because I didn't in my last discussion, Kobe Smulders and Will Arnett. They are playing, as the credits tell us, mother and father. I liked them more in this episode. In the first episode, I was worried I was going to have trouble because I see Will Arnett primarily as a comedic actor, and I have the same kind of issue with Kobe Smulders, so I was worried that it was going to be too hard to take them seriously and it was all going to be just like funny, kooky times, but I really liked them. I really liked their balance of humor and adventure, especially at the end of the second episode of the Reptile Room, where they are in that like pub in Peru and she's on the phone, and I loved that scene. I loved it. So let's talk about Monty. I have likes and I have dislikes. I adore Asif Mandvi as an actor, which is why I was so excited to see him portray Monty, and overall, I feel very positively about how they portrayed Monty. In fact, I think that he made the character make a lot more sense, and the changes in the dialogue in general just made Monty work more, and I loved that. My one main issue is I don't understand what accent he was going for, and it seemed to shift at any given moment. I don't know if that was the intention, but I just felt like I never at any point understood exactly what accent he was trying to hit, and that was kind of distracting. But everything else about his portrayal I was a huge fan of. I thought he was sweet and loud and funny, and he played off of the kids so well. He made the Baudelaires feel welcome in really specific ways that I just really liked how they played off one another. And I loved especially the asides that he would have where he would sort of confide in them and they would have these secret conversations, because it felt a lot more like an adult talking to other adults, which is A thing I talked about a bit in my last discussion video, the way that other adults in the show tend to treat the Baudelaires as unimportant or that they don't have opinions that are valid, and I loved the ways that Asif Manvi made it clear that he did not feel that way about the kids. That was great. Also, and this is more of a script change than a portrayal change, but I loved the fact that the children never knew that Monty thought Stefano was someone from the Herpetological Society. Again, like I said, in the books I've always had the problem that if these children had come to Uncle Monty, I feel he would have been like, oh, you are telling me a thing and I am going to believe you and give you the benefit of the doubt. And so I appreciate that it seemed like he was giving them that benefit of the doubt. He was welcoming them in and allowing trust to build, but they still made it very clear that he didn't actually know what was going on. I just think it makes a lot more sense for Monty as a character to clearly be on the kid's side, and the fact that he never is like, don't be silly, I know what's going on. It just doesn't fit with his character as much, so I really liked that change. And the last portrayal I want to talk about is, again, someone I didn't mention in my last video, and that is K. Todd Freeman as Mr. Poe. I am completely in love with the portrayal of Mr. Poe. I think that he is nailing it. He is really funny, and I love his especially dim-witted moments played with the utmost sincerity. I think that he's just really capturing Mr. Poe, and my favorite thing that he has done thus far in the entire show is the scene at the end of episode 4, The Reptile Room Part 2, in which Sonny is trapped by the incredibly deadly Viper and he's running around the room going, save her, don't save her, get some help, call the police, don't call anybody, don't move, everyone run. I thought it was great because it's straight from the book, but also I just think he did it fantastically. So let's talk about plot a bit more. A lot changed plot-wise from book to show. I said in my last discussion video that I'm really pleased that they are bringing the Secret Society stuff in so early, but I had bigger issues with it in these 2 episodes because I think that they are relying a bit too heavily on that Secret Society element. I think that incorporating it so heavily is taking away now from some of the storylines, and it has led to inclusions of stuff that don't really seem to be there for any other reason than dramatic effect, such as the maze shaped like an eye. I feel like they threw that in there because it would be cool aesthetically, but it didn't play that much of a role in the show. Really, really unnecessary. Also, it led to that very strange scene where I don't know how long Jacqueline has been up there pretending to be a statue, but it seems like a long time, and I wasn't really a fan of that. I thought that that was a bit too out of left field, a bit too strange for her to just suddenly be like, I'm the statue from your maze and I'm here to help you. That was a little weird. I did, however, really like the moment with the piano, the photo of the piano that is supposed to be Monty and the Baudelaire parents, but they're inside the piano, and the little nudge, the little mention that Olaf is the one who took the picture of them. I think that that is a great little moment, and I loved that, as well as the moments at the movie theater. I think that those 2 on their own would have been good inclusions of the Secret Society thing without it starting to overwhelm the Baudelaire storyline. So yeah, I liked those little hits and mentions, but when it got too involved, that's when I liked it less. I like that we got a different explanation for the Peru expedition in this adaptation. I really appreciated that. Again, just from a storytelling standpoint in the books, you're kind of like, oh, okay, Peru, sure. But I like that they've made the children more skeptical. So these are incredibly intelligent children. We're reminded of that a lot of times, and I really like that they are embracing that and making sure to give nods to the fact that these kids know that something weird is going on. They are confused by their parents' actions. They don't understand why they were sent to certain places. They don't really think any of it makes sense, and I like that they get to focus on that a lot more instead of just being like, we're really sad that we have to go to these places. It's more like, why on earth would our parents leave these instructions? I love that they are playing with that, and I'm hoping to see more with Klaus trying to work with that telescope going forward. I'm sure we will, but excited for it. Oh, I really liked the new intro. I like that they're going to do like a different intro for every 2-parter. I thought it was a fun little verse change, and again, it's a great way of setting the stage for the show, and so just really enjoyed that. On the other hand, I really need them to chill with the number of Netflix binge-watching jokes that they're making. Like, I get it. I'm watching the show on a streaming service, but Probably we need to chill at this point. I'm aware of where I'm watching the show. Okay, so I have to bring it up. The color stuff, which is what I was talking about in my last discussion video, they did the color stuff that I wanted them to do. So as soon as the Baudelaires drove up to Monty's house and it was so saturated and colorful and lively, I was like, yes. The decor is so vibrant, and Monty's costume in particular is also really vibrant because he represents such a safe space for the Baudelaires. The kids get to wear bright clothes still, but they do not stand out amidst the darkness. It's that it seems like they're in a place where they really belong, and then as soon as Monty dies, the saturation gets turned way down, and I actually clutched my chest because I was so happy from a design standpoint. Once again, the kids' clothes are still really bright, but everything about Monty's house is dimmed. All of the saturation levels are lower, it looks a bit grimmer, it looks a bit darker, and even, along with the pallor on Monty's cheeks, obviously he's dead, so his pallor is not as vibrant, but his clothing looks less vibrant because he is no longer a safe space for them, just like his house no longer represents a safe space for them. And, oh man. Also, a little aside, I appreciated that Monty looked like a Pushing Daisies murder victim to a certain extent. It wasn't quite as over the top as a Pushing Daisies murder victim might be, but it was getting close, and again, I'm gonna keep appreciating the little calls back to Pushing Daisies. After I filmed my discussion video, I did look into it and make sure that the executive producers for both shows were the same, and then a bunch of you pointed that out as well in the comments of that video, so yes, I do know that they have the same executive producer, and so I'm just appreciating the little connections that I've seen throughout each of the shows still. Oh, but one more prediction before we go as far as color. I might be the only person who cares this much about color in the show, but I'm just so about it. My prediction going forward, and many of you have probably already seen The Wide Window, but I have not, so I'm thinking that for episodes 5 and 6, everything is going to get a lot dimmer again, especially Aunt Josephine's house. The general look, I think, is going to get a lot darker, but I still feel that the children are going to be the bright, colorful light amongst that darkness. I don't think that we've drained them of their hope enough yet for their costumes to start to get darker, so I think that they're still going to be very colorful children while the world around them gets much darker. I think even scenes like the anxious clown and the moment in the anxious clown are going to be a lot dimmer in terms of color. So that is my color prediction going forward. Hope you're appreciating these. I care a little bit too much, possibly about the design elements of the show, but I'm really into them. Okay, so overall, I was a fan of this two-parter. I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was fun, and I liked some of the changes that they made from the book. Obviously didn't like some of the other changes, but I can live with it. The show is still impressing me. I still have a lot of hopes going forward, and I'm curious to continue to see what they're going to do with the secret society elements. So anyway, those are all of my thoughts on the Reptile Room. Please let me know what your thoughts are on these two episodes. Do you like it? How are you feeling about certain characters, about certain design elements, if you care as much as I do? Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!